Learning Cantonese in this day and age should not be as difficult as it is, but for various reasons, good Cantonese learner resources like textbooks, apps, graded readers, dictionaries, and so much more are really hard to come by. That is why in this video I present to you various resources as suggested by the CantoCaptions Community, a community of Cantonese learners and advocates that made it their mission to create Cantonese learner resources. Of course, there will be timestamps and I will link as much as possible down in the description below, so make sure you have a look at that as well. Without further ado, let's look at some Cantonese resources. The first step when learning a foreign language is to learn the alphabet and have a look at the pronunciation. With Cantonese, as with some other languages, we obviously run into the problem that it uses Chinese characters instead of an alphabet, so it is instead necessary to learn the romanization and pronunciation. This 15-minute YouTube video by Inspireling gives an introduction to Jyutping, the most commonly used Cantonese romanization system. She goes over what are called initials and finals, the building blocks of Cantonese syllables and words, and also the 6 tones. There's also this Wikipedia article for anyone who would like to familiarize themselves with Jyutping or needs to brush up on their knowledge but prefers everything in writing. Once you feel like you got the gist, you can check out this Jyutping chart that has all possible sound combinations of the Cantonese language, and they come with audio.
咪書
Learning the romanization is not optional, by the way. Nobody's saying you need to have it mastered after a day or two, but give it your best effort, because without knowing how to use the romanization correctly, you're really gonna struggle to learn words or look them up in a dictionary, and it'll be impossible to clarify or explain things whenever you have questions, because you won't know how to describe what you're hearing and will have difficulties typing in Cantonese. To practice and test your listening skills and understanding of Jyutping, there's this cute little game where you have to type what you hear before the rock reaches the ground. There are 6 different modes with varying difficulty, each focusing on a slightly different aspect of Jyutping. It is great for practicing your listening and typing skills. Now, don't get discouraged if this seems impossible at first. As someone who doesn't know any Cantonese, I obviously had no idea what I was doing, but as you practice again and again, and you really listen to the sounds and you get used to them more and more, you will become better. Next up, we have this wiki page on Cantonese phonology to help you better understand the pronunciation. As always, I would highly recommend learning the IPA, it just makes things so much easier long term. If that's a little too much right at this moment, there's also this mini YouTube series on Cantonese pronunciation in just 8 4-minute videos. Again, the goal is not to master the pronunciation after the first day, but I would recommend everyone starting out to at least have a look at it, and then as you learn more, as you get better, check in every once in a while just to make sure that your pronunciation is still on the right track. Now that you know how to write Cantonese, even if you don't know the characters yet, just the romanization, and you know how to pronounce everything, it is time to learn some words, because without words, you have nothing. I got 3 things for you, and I am sorry, I know some of you are not gonna like this, but 2 of them are Anki decks. The first deck you can easily find by just searching Cantonese Anki deck on Google. It contains the most common 1000 words, comes with word audio and an example sentence, both written in Chinese characters but also the romanization. The second deck contains 800 words and sentences specifically curated to be in an I+1 order, meaning that every single new card that you learn will only have 1 new piece of information compared to all the previous cards. This is really nice because it gently introduces new information while repeating what you already learned without overwhelming you. This way, both the learning rate and difficulty stay pretty consistent throughout the deck. Finally, in this category, we have Close Master, where you can do so-called closed tasks. They're kind of like flashcards where you first see a word or sentence, and then later, instead of checking whether you can recognize or translate the word, you have to actually type it in yourself, usually in the form of fill-in-the-blank closed task in a sentence. This makes the whole process a little more active and again helps you practice your Jyutping. Once we learn some words, the next step is usually to familiarize ourselves with the structure of the language. For this, the most extensive yet easy to understand piece of literature is the Modified Basic Cantonese, a grammar and workbook book. The first 3 chapters cover the pronunciation, more specifically consonants, vowels, and tones. The following 25 chapters introduce all basic grammar structures of the Cantonese language. Each new grammar pattern comes with an explanation and plenty of example sentences that should make the grammar easier to understand. The original book uses the Yale romanization and does not come with any Chinese characters, though I think there might be a newer edition that has Chinese characters now. This modified version uses the more common Jyutping romanization that I already talked about in the first part of this video, and characters were additionally added to be more reflective of how the language is actually written and used. With a grammar resource like this, again, the goal is not to learn everything by heart, but rather to just slowly read through the chapters, really try to understand the point and understand the pattern, look at the example sentences and see if those make sense with the explanations given, and then just move on. And obviously you'll forget things. You'll have to look at them again and again, and you might not even recognize them when you come across them in the wild. But by priming yourself with these grammar structures, you at least know of them. And as you get better and you learn more and more, you become more familiar with them and will eventually have internalized them as just a normal part of the language. Now that we know our Jyutping, have continued to learn some words, and started to familiarize ourselves with the structure of the language, it is time to put all this into practice. Because learning on paper is great and fun. Maybe not. At the end of the day, the goal for most people is to speak and listen and read the language. So here's some beginner-friendly content to help you practice your listening skills. I'm not going to talk about each channel or playlist individually because what we like to watch differs from person to person, but these channels all use easy to understand Cantonese that will help you bridge the gap between not knowing anything and actually being able to enjoy all sorts of Cantonese media. As a special shout out in this section, I'd like to mention my friend Israel's Cantonese Linguistics Podcast, a podcast about linguistics in Cantonese. The podcast itself is available for free on YouTube. If you want to challenge your listening comprehension a little bit, there are over 1,000 episodes at this point. And there is a full transcript in Cantonese available on their Patreon. Next up, we have reading material. Anyone who knows me knows I'm the biggest fan of reading because it is just such a great way to see grammar and vocabulary in context. But in the beginning, it's obviously hard to just whip out a novel and read that, so here are some beginner-friendly short stories, graded readers, that allow you to reap the benefits of reading right from the beginning. The first website contains the Hambalan Graded Readers. It is a massive collection of graded readers from very, very early beginner all the way up to intermediate reading levels, so you can keep reading things as you get better to keep challenging yourself. The stories often incorporate cultural elements from Hong Kong, which means you can not only improve your Cantonese, but also learn something about the culture. There are also simplified Chinese fables as well as translated famous international fables. Each graded reader has downloadable Cantonese PDFs, audio, pure written Cantonese text, standard written Chinese translations, and often a document with cultural notes. And it's all free. The other website is called Storybooks Canada and has graded reader short stories with native audio. They go from level 1 to 5, and each story has multiple images to help with comprehension and sentence level audio so you can listen to them one at a time. Of course, as you interact with the language more and more, you will come across things you don't know and will want to look up. So here's a selection of dictionaries for various situations. The top recommendation is the words.hk electronic dictionary. It is the most comprehensive and accurate Cantonese dictionary, comes with a ton of example words, sentences, and audio, and is still actively being worked on. The English version of it is called Canto Words and allows you to search in English as well. Wiktionary is another website that has decent coverage of Cantonese. For the words that do have Cantonese entries, it usually comes with the pronunciation written in the IPA and audio recording by native speakers. Then there's also Dictionary, an app that allows you to install different dictionaries so you can search them all in one go, which might help if, for example, one of the dictionaries doesn't have an entry for a word, or an explanation isn't clear from just one dictionary. Finally, we have a free Chrome pop-up dictionary which allows you to click on words and look them up right on the spot. In this last section, I'd like to introduce two tools to you that can help you with making flashcards from content, like books, graded readers, websites, videos, and so on. This process is called sentence mining and is a good habit to get into for more efficient vocabulary learning. The mechanism behind it is that you pick content that you care about and choose words and phrases at your current language level. When you later review those words, you will have a better memory because you made those cards yourself and have more context. First, we have Migaku, and yes, they surprisingly have really solid Cantonese support. It's a powerful software that keeps track of words you're learning, lets you look up things on the go, and can help you create flashcards with just one click. They have both a desktop and a mobile version, so you can make and review flashcards, take notes, watch shows, and read things from both your desktop and your phone. More recently, they added an e-reader that allows you to upload your texts and use all of Migaku's functionality right on it. So you could, for example, read and sentence mine from the graded readers I shared earlier. It is paid, either in a subscription model or a one-time lifetime purchase, but if you use the link in my description, you get a certain percentage off, and upon your first purchase, you get a month for free, which gives you a little more time to play around with it to really decide if you want to use it long term. As with everything on the internet, there is a free alternative called Yomitan that has similar functionality but requires you to do all the setup for, of example, dictionaries yourself. Unlike Migaku, it only works on a desktop and is limited to a pop-up dictionary and creating cards, but if those are the only features you're interested in anyways, then it will be just fine. Now you have everything necessary to embark on your Cantonese learning journey. If you know any other resources, apps, websites, books that you think are great for learning Cantonese, put them down in the comments so that other Cantonese learners can also benefit of that knowledge.